Do you enjoy eating healthy? Do you enjoy working out? Aside from the benefits that it brings, is it something that you enjoy? What about change? Do you like change? Now, is there something I just named that you don't currently enjoy doing but would like to enjoy? Would you like to enjoy eating healthy? Would you like to embrace change? Why is that? What's the difference between someone who enjoys eating healthy and someone who does not? Today we're going to take a closer look at this. But a quote by Carl Jung comes to mind. The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality. For no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. To become conscious of it involves recognizing the dark aspects of the personality as present and real. This act is the essential condition for any kind of self-knowledge. Now, I read quotes like this a couple years ago when I was in Psychology 101, and I didn't really understand. I mean, I read the words, but I didn't understand what they were talking about. Today, we're going to take a closer look at this idea of the shadow and what we can do about it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a little experiment, kind of. I like to call it the mirror experiment, even though it does not involve a mirror. I will take this right here, right? And on it, it says, scoot it up for you. It says change. You know, a little bit of artistic work, you see there? So what we're going to do, or what I'm going to have you do, is I want you to write down all the emotions, stories, and any other thoughts or phrases that come to mind when you think of change. So an example could be, maybe you think of change and it makes you angry, right? I don't want to change. I'm quite happy where I am. It might make you confused, which leads to you maybe being fearful or insecure. You may feel sad, right? So then any stories that come to mind. So it'll be, oh, there was that one time when, right? That'll be playing in your head. Any other thoughts or phrases? You could be saying something like, oh, I wish I didn't have to do this. OMG. No. I'm so nervous, right? So when we're actually looking at change, we're unaware that what we're seeing is not actually the change itself. It's not what's going on. We're seeing the anger. We're seeing the fear. We're seeing the old past stories and things that happen. We're seeing all the thoughts that are coming to our mind. So this would be reminiscent of what the shadow could be personified as these things here, because they literally stop you from seeing the whole of what's going on. Okay? So then next, what we're going to do, you may ask yourself, okay, Brittany, where does this shadow come from? Right? Which would lead me to epigenetics, right? Now, what is epigenetics? Let's try to move this back for you, okay? So I want you to be able to see what's going on. Okay, epigenetics is the study of how your behaviors and environment can cause changes that affect the way your genes work. Now, that's quoted from the CDC website. As well as, unlike genetic changes, epigenetic changes are reversible and do not change the DNA sequence, but they do change how your body reads a DNA sequence. Epigenetics affect gene expression to turn the genes on and off. So, a good example of this would be right here. When we think of genetic changes, right? I have my little lights here. It's a string of lights. When we think of genetic changes, what happens is the gene sequence is actually changed. It's changed into something different. It's not the same anymore. However, epigenetic changes just turn the gene on and off, right? So, some examples. Well, let's go back up here where it says the study of how your behavior. So what examples can we say as behavior? So it could be like diet and exercise. Now, the example I like to give when it comes to diet is the movie Soul Food, if you've ever seen it. In the movie, there's a family that gets together every Sunday at Big Mama's house and they eat soul food, right? Big Mama ends up getting diabetes. And the family goes through their trials and tribulations. She ends up passing away, and through all that, the family actually comes back together and they end up eating the soul food all over again. Now, we can see how that behavior is in the diet is a mindset. Because even though Big Mama got sick from the soul food and the diabetes, and that's what killed her, here we have the entire family coming together again over that same food that killed her. Another example of this could be this Heinz ketchup right here, right? Let me move this up. I was grocery shopping with my mother one day, and she says, you know what, Brittany, I never thought about it, but I always bought this same brand of ketchup for you all growing up because my parents bought it for me. And then she goes on to name like the syrup and the jelly and different things like that she bought them the same brand simply because her parents did. So we need to sit down. That tells me like, okay, there are probably so many unconscious ketchup bottles and unconscious syrup bottles in our head of things that our parents gave us and mindsets that they gave us that we're not conscious of, and that would be the shadow, right? And when it comes to environment, because epigenetics is also how the environment changes the way your genes work. So I like to think of whether you're eat meat or not. Would you rather have food that comes from nature, that's been in its natural environment, or would you rather have something that was caged in a laboratory somewhere, right? So we can see how the environment has a big change on, or has a big effect on how we, how our food is. And closing out with epigenetics, here's a quote by Dr. Bruce Lipton from the book, The Biology of Belief. Our genes are constantly being remodeled in response to life experiences, which again emphasizes that our perceptions of life shape our biology. So that's closing out for the epigenetics. So you may ask yourself, oh my goodness, Brittany, so what is it that we can do about these things? It seems like it's passed down, it's in our genes. Like what is it that can be done? Glad you asked. A quote by Carl Jung comes to mind, yet again, where he says, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. So what comes to mind with that could be yin and yang, right? Two halves that make a whole. So down here, I have another bit of an example for you I'd like you to look at. So it's the idea of temperature, right? So we know we have a hot side and we have a cold side. However, what people don't often correlate is that they are the same thing, right? They're just different degrees. They're both temperature. Just you have hot and you have cold, right? So excuse me. If we go back to our change diagram, we could take something such as anger, right? And we could take it and put it on this side here. And then what would be the opposite of anger? I'd go with peace, right? So we see how anger and peace are the same exact thing. However, it is just different degrees on that scale. So we'll take it. We'll do another one. We have, we'll do this one first. Sorry. We have insecure, right? So we'll take insecure and we'll put it there. Excuse me. So the other side of insecure will be what? Secure. And we could do the last. We could do fearful, right? Let's go down a little bit more. Sorry, guys. So we have fearful there. And what will be on the other side of fearful? We have courage. So we can see how these things are the same thing, just different degrees. So when we are looking at different things such as change, what we're doing is we're covering up that side. All we're seeing is this here. When it's whole, everything has two sides. So the exercise that I'm going to give you, I'm so excited about, because it's going to make a real difference in your life if you choose to do it. Excuse me. So what you're going to do is you're going to write down a high charge story. Something in your life that you have a lot of feelings about. It could be you were on the road today and somebody cut you off and that upset you. Go ahead and write a story about it. I want you to pour everything that you have, all the feelings and thoughts and whatever comes out, pour it out into the story. And what you'll do is you'll begin to highlight those key words. When you see them throughout your story, you'll be able to highlight them. And then what I want you to do is, what you're going to do next is, once you've highlighted all those words in your story, I want you to come up with their opposite. We're going to take this off. Right? Look up all of their opposites and put it right next to it, like you see me doing here. And then after you've done that, you're going to say a prayer and you're going to release it. Now, what I'm going to have in the description is an actual write-up of the exercise. So it's not kind of, you know, this isn't as secure or as much solid as I'd like it to be. But I'm going to have a write-up there in the description for you so you'll be able to do the exercise. Now, doing this exercise will actually change your life, right? Because we're making things that the unseen seen, the unconscious conscious. And all of that work right there is going to change the way that you're perceiving and that you're experiencing life. So through this polarities exercise, you know, where you write your story and write both on there, you're going to be able to make a change in your life. So I'll have that in the description, as well as a questionnaire. Now, with the questionnaire, it's not for you to fill out for anybody else other than you. It's going to, it asks questions such as, explain who would you be if you were someone who embraced fear instead of ran from it. Explain how would your life be different? How would your life be if you were someone who went out embracing fear as opposed to being afraid of it? Right? So it's little questions like that get you thinking and going. So the questionnaire will be in the bottom, as well as the instructions on the polarity processing. I don't know, writing prompt. I got to think of a proper word for it. I do want to mention, though, that I did get it from this book, The Marriage of Spirit by Leslie Temple-Thurston. I got all the processing things from this book. So you can also pick up this book.